And there's nothing like that, experiencing it if you've been in Mississippi, which I know you have, and gone into a juke joint in a small town in Mississippi and know that it's been there since, that tradition has been there since the 20s at least. So, I mean, I agree that your festival, perhaps the greatest festival, it allows so many more people to hear this music and share in that music, which is a very important aspect of it. But I don't think that would keep it alive as much as the inner city, neighborhood clubs where the children learn to play in it, and it's like passed on.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, right, and I think certainly that's really what's going to keep the music alive, is certainly within the community, and let it be in a juke joint in Mississippi or a juke joint in south side of Chicago. It's certainly, that's where people are, cutting their teeth and being able to figure out, well, what does it mean to be a performance, and that they're going to be booed off a stage at one of these juke joints a lot easier or faster than if they were performing in a large venue like the festival.
Right. I think that, not to bring jazz into it, a whole other subject, but I think that blues is really doing a lot better, thriving a lot better than jazz is, and it's not relying on the academic world to make it have it survive. And it's almost like the academic world is giving it life support, whereas blues is still really vital, I think, today in the areas where it exists.
Well, again, we're here speaking of the blues, and after a unique performance by the New Millennium Orchestra String Quartet of Larry Hoffman String Quartet number 1, The Blues. I probably have a few minutes you just have to project a little bit on questions from the audience.
I'd just like to interject and say what a wonderful performance that they gave, and to thank them very much for showing up and doing that. They really put a lot of heart and soul into it. Very much appreciated. Got another hand for you.
Anybody? Yes.
Yes.
Do you think that's something that should be maintained, like cultural boundaries?
I don't like to tell anybody what to do. If that's what you're asking, do you think I did the right thing and everybody else that didn't? I know I don't. I'm not challenging you on that. I'm just asked to try to figure out what you're saying. I know a white blues piano player who achieved a lot of fame with a very important white blues band around that time, and I related that story to him, and he told me I missed my opportunity. It's a whole other take on it, like, hey, you could have really gotten somewhere had you done that, and he didn't get it. He goes a whole different direction, and he has found some bluesmen, and he plays on all their records. And I know a lot of people that do that, and I think I don't subscribe to that or whatever. I think that if I wanted to be really extreme about it, which some people that know me would not be surprised at, but if I would really be extreme about it, I would say that in slavery, one of the things that black people could not own anything. And when you look at like all the famous and rich bluesmen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know him as well as I do, you can count the black ones on maybe one hand. And, in a way of looking at it, like they can't own their music. I mean, it is their music. I mean, without a doubt, they're the ones that created this music. So no one, for example, doubts that like Celtic music is not Irish. And, that's fine. Everybody accepts that. And country music, by and large, is white. And everybody accepts that. But blues and jazz, for some reason, ownership is kind of denied, cultural ownership. It was basically my experience of their music, that let me know I could do this music, but I could never be that music. And I feel privileged kind of to know the difference because I've heard it. And I think most people take what they hear on the radio and what other people tell them to listen to without really exploring the actual roots of it. And that's too bad, really, because that's where the most intense expression of that music is. If that answers the question, or if that, not really answers the question, shows you where I'm at with it, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if, I guess, what we were getting at, we have goals at that time, in relation to cultural boundaries and cultural identity with your music.
Did,
Well, I mean,
I
goal,
hear it.
I mean, the cultural boundaries, I think, is sort of where, I think, and I don't want to put words in Larry's mouth, but in the sense that, again, the idea of, being able to have ownership of one's own culture, in some sense, sets those boundaries. And certainly in America, where everything seems to be shared, or everything seems to be owned, or everything seems to be leased, you
Right.
don't
Good
want
word
to
for it.
necessarily present somebody's own culture by having them lease it back.
and there are blues festivals that have entirely white players. The whole roster is white. And that's up to you or someone, or anybody to say if that, there are feelings about it. But if someone claimed that there's no difference between the musical expression, I would say, I feel sorry for someone that didn't hear the difference. And I think the difference is beautiful. In other words, I don't feel that it's exclusionary and segregationist and like that. I think that there's a beautiful difference to the music because of that. It adds a tremendous amount because it's got the whole depth of the culture to it, which is my apprehension of it, or whatever.
And then the other thing is the whole idea of authenticity. I think that's been sociologists' direction for the last couple of years. This Dave Grazian, who got his degree from the University of Chicago and is now at the University of Pennsylvania, wrote about just even the authenticity of the blues clubs in Chicago. I mean, well, one, it is authentic. It's happening at the moment, no matter where it's at. It certainly is not, the 708 Club of 1954 when Buddy Guy got off the train and saw Muddy Waters performing, and he was starving, and all of a sudden took the stage, and Muddy just, went ahead and bought him a pig ear sandwich or a salami sandwich to get him some food. But it is what's happening today. This is as authentic. This is what's happening today. Let it be with classical music or let it be with blues. I mean, this is what, again, a certain particular expression. And so in some cases, one may say that, well, is the imitation of what that 1954 record of Juke, Let It Be Juke or Little Walter, and that ensemble in some cases is an archetype that is then imitated over and over by really, again, people from outside the culture. And therefore then it's an imitation. And is that then authentic? Well, it's authentic for them, possibly. Is it, for a particular audience? And I think, again, what Larry was also saying is that he wouldn't tell anybody not to or tell somebody, but he does have his feelings. But I think in some cases, well, where does all that fit in? And what Muddy Waters and Brownie McGee wrote and sang about was that blues had a baby and they called it rock and roll. Well, those certainly are the babies of what came out of the fields and came out of really the result of the Middle Passage. That's where the blues came out of. And as was explained about the scales that were performed by the quartet is out of the ordinary that they usually play. Well, those are truly the Africanisms.